13 Falun Gong followers detained in Macau this morning have been deported to Hong Kong. Several others were put on flights out of the enclave, but there has been no word on the fate of 3 others from the mainland. The group of around 30 Falun Gong followers had gathered in a park near the Lisboa Hotel in defiance of the Macau authorities' efforts to keep them away from the handover. Mary Lois Chan reports from Macau.
About 30 Falun Gong followers gathered in a park opposite the Lisboa Hotel this morning to practice their exercises, despite being warned by Macau authorities to stay away. A police officer quickly turned off their music and accused them of illegal assembly. But the practitioners said they did try to get a permit.
When we apply it, they don't agree it because we are Falun Dafa practitioners. I think Macau government, why they did not agree us, because they think the Chinese government gave them some pressure.
Police tried to snatch their banners without success, and confusion ensued as officers seemed unsure how to handle the situation. Falun Gong has become one of the most sensitive security issues surrounding the handover ever since the group, which has been outlawed on the mainland, announced its intention to petition Chinese leaders in Macau for today's ceremony. Eventually, police began checking where the practitioners had come from. And then they were dragged away one by one. The gathering here this morning follows a step-up in Falun Gong activity in the past week, when followers from all over the world have rallied to support their fellow practitioners on the mainland. There are representatives here from at least 7 countries, including Hong Kong and the mainland. Mary Lois Chan, TVB News, Macau.
Meanwhile, 2 activists from Hong Kong were barred from entering Macau today, just hours before the handover ceremonies. The head of the Information Center for Human Rights and Democracy in China, Frank Liu, and Lung Kwok-hung of the April 5th Action Group were put on a Hong Kong-bound ferry after being questioned by police for 2 hours. Liu says it's tragic that Macau authorities are acting on Beijing's orders even before the handover. No one from Hong Kong's pro-democracy camp was invited to participate in today's festivities. Celebrations also underway in Zhuhai, from where a PLA garrison will enter Macau tomorrow. Today, a farewell ceremony was held at the barracks, and Teresa Hsu was there.
These PLA troops will be the first soldiers to set foot in Macau in 25 years, since the Portuguese military was withdrawn. They remained stoic as the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission inspected them and laid down the orders. Fellow soldiers from the Guangzhou Garrison came to bid farewell. Outstanding laborers from around China were among the honorable guests. The Macau Garrison is seen as a significant symbol for Macau's handover, and according to the central government, the PLA troops will play a crucial role in maintaining stability in the enclave. In further referring to Macau's handover, the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission brought up the issue of Taiwan. Macau has a much smaller PLA garrison than Hong Kong. With just about 900 members, the Macau garrison is made up of mostly army officers. The troops will arrive in Macau tomorrow. 200 of them will be stationed at a temporary base. The rest will remain at the garrison's headquarters at the Nanping Barracks in Zhuhai. Teresa Hsu, TVB News, Zhuhai.
We'll be back with more live coverage of the handover ceremony after the break. For now, we leave you with some of the highlights of today's events in Macau and Zhuhai. Good night.
And we continue our Macau handover coverage, and we'll cross over live now to the handover venue where the 2,500 guests have already gathered. The handover ceremony is due to start at 11:30, and it's being held in a temporary structure, which is 6,000 square meters. Actually, Macau did build a cultural center, although it never said that the handover ceremonies would be held in that cultural center. That was what everybody had expected. And it cost more than 500 million patakas to build that cultural center. And, but there were repeated revisions of plans, finally boosting costs to 960 million patakas. And even then, it was found that the cultural center was too small to host the handover. And we see on screen Stanley Ho, the STDM casino tycoon. Anyway, the cultural center was found to be too small to hold even a reception to be hosted by, that was hosted by Portugal. And the handover ceremonies, of course, could not be accommodated in the cultural center. And actually, Macau's kitty has been drained in many other ways by the government, which has never been open with its expenditure. One of the biggest controversies was the Orient Foundation.
The Portuguese traditionally take long vacations in summer, and for a decade, the Orient Foundation has held summer concerts in Lisbon to entertain people free of charge. The shows are held in this mansion, which serves as foundation headquarters. The foundation has assets of 3 billion patakas. Where did that come from? In 1986, when the Macau government renewed the STDM's gambling franchise, it required the company to spend 400 million patakas to set up the Orient Foundation and top it off annually with 5% of its net profits. The money was said to be used for Macau's culture, charity, scientific and academic development research. But the foundation later became a private organization registered in Portugal. At least some of its funds have been used in areas unrelated to Macau. And Macau people had no say. Carlos Monjardino handled STDM's franchise renewal for the Macau government as the Secretary for Economic Affairs. Shortly after the foundation was set up, he returned to Portugal to become foundation chairman, taking charge of its 3 billion patakas.
There's no reason why you shouldn't have the head office here, because Portugal was, and still is, the country that was running Macau. So it was not natural that the foundation would have the head office here.
佢本身突然之間亦都做咗啦，係東方基金會嘅主席。咁而咧嗰啲錢咧又源源不絕咁樣啦，係繼續撥過去啦，俾東方基金會嚟到控制咗澳門嘅本地資源。點解會安排一個咁嘅基金會喺葡國嗰方面去控制呢？
Besides having 2 buildings for headquarters in Portugal, the foundation also owns this 14th or 15th century monastery. It has also been searching high and low for art objects to be displayed in an Oriental museum to be opened in Lisbon next year. The Orient Foundation was set up in 1986, just as the Sino-Portuguese talks on Macau's future got underway. At the end of that year, the Macau government hastily amended the law in order to extend STDM's gambling franchise to the end of 2001.
To negotiate that, because we didn't know what the reaction would be to the gambling contract on the part of China, it was better to negotiate more to a period that perhaps was after the handover.
One condition for extending the franchise was the setting up of the Orient Foundation.
The governor then said, Mr. Ho, if you want an extension, you must contribute 5% to a fund called the Orient Foundation. So I thought, well, the name itself, Orient Foundation, must be for the Orient, for Macau, the more for Macau. But without realizing that in the end, the foundation, although named Orient Foundation, was registered in Portugal.
So you were cheated?
Why can't you use that word cheated? I wasn't aware, I can say. But they defended themselves for saying that, well, We did not use the money in a bad way, in any way, in Portugal. We're using a small amount for Macau, a bigger amount for the Macanese around the world, like those in Brazil, those in Paris, those in San Francisco, in New York, etc.
The foundation also bought a string of historically valuable property in Macau at prices below market rates, including the Luis de Camões Museum, bought from the Liao Senado for about 25 million patakas. The foundation then closed the museum and turned the building into its Macau headquarters. The Orient Foundation has an annual recurring expenditure of 100 million patakas. Just over half of it is spent on Macau. Promoting friendship among the Macanese diaspora is also an aim of the foundation. For example, the foundation hosted a gathering in Macau of Macanese from around the world. The foundation has set up clubhouses for Macanese in many countries. It's also published books on Chinese and Portuguese culture. And recently, it released a tome on Macanese lineage.
The foundation spends most of its funds in Macau. We build houses for poor people, we help schools, we help kindergartens, we help hospitals.
In the past decade, the Orient Foundation has helped out Macau's welfare programs. It has donated 100 million patakas to build housing for the grassroots. But generally, Macau people have not been happy with the foundation. When the gambling franchise was debated in Macau's legislature, no details on the Orient Foundation were laid out and legislators did not raise any questions. Only 6 years after the foundation was set up did lawmakers raise queries. They then passed a motion of regret regarding the foundation. In 1996, the Sino-Portuguese Joint Liaison Group decided STDM should stop giving money to the foundation. But the 2 billion already given would stay. Pindu Machado became governor of Macau in 1986. He says Carlos Monjardino was already preparing for the Orient Foundation when he came to office, and he couldn't stop him. He had this to say about Monjardino.
Mas isso é uma... não posso provar, mas estou convencido que o Dr. Carlos Monjardino gostava de ter sido governador de Macau.
Pintu Machado says he originally had a lot of expectations of Macau, but after 1 year as governor, he suddenly resigned. He's since refused to say why.
Sad, because my dream as a child died, just a newborn, but also in peace, very quiet, because the nightmare also ended.